I only went to the store because I needed batteries. It was late afternoon, that dead hour where the sun is still up but everyone looks tired anyway. The parking lot was packed, carts everywhere, kids crying. The automatic doors opened and closed non-stop, breathing people in and out. Inside, it smelled like detergent and hot food from the deli. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Everything felt normal enough that I didn't pay attention to the first weird thing. A man was standing near the customer service desk, bent forward with his hands on his knees. He looked sick, pale. Sweat darkened his collar. An employee asked if he was okay, and he didn't answer. He just made this wet, rattling sound when he breathed. I walked past him. That's the thing that keeps replaying in my head. A few aisles over, people were arguing. Someone yelled that the exits were backed up. Another voice shouted that the doors wouldn't open. I assumed it was some system glitch or a fight. Big stores always have noise like that. My phone buzzed once. No notification loaded. Then the overhead speakers crackled. "Attention shoppers, please remain calm." The pause after that sentence was too long. Due to an ongoing situation, the store will be temporarily closing. Please move away from the entrances and await further instructions. No one stayed calm. Carts were abandoned. People started moving fast, not running yet, but fast enough that you felt it in your chest. I turned toward the front of the store just as the first scream cut through the noise. It didn't sound like fear. It sounded like pain. The scream didn't stop. It turned into several voices, overlapping, climbing over each other. A security guard ran past me toward the front doors. I followed at a distance, staying near the shelves. That's when I saw the glass doors slam shut. Metal gates dropped from the ceiling with a heavy, final clatter. Someone was pounding on the doors from the outside. Their face was pressed so hard against the glass that it flattened, leaving streaks behind. Then, something yanked them backward. Blood splashed across the entrance windows. Not sprayed thrown. People rushed away from the front. Someone fell. Someone else tripped over them. I heard a loud crack that might have been bone hitting tile. No one stopped to help. The man from customer service was on the floor now. The employee was screaming, holding her arm. He wasn't biting like in movies. He was tearing. Fingers digging, teeth ripping. His jaw worked wrong, snapping too wide. A gunshot echoed from outside, then another. The man didn't stop moving. That's when the word finally hit me. Zombie. I hated myself for thinking it, but nothing else fit. People were being hurt and not reacting like people should. Pain wasn't slowing them down. The lights flickered once. Phones stopped working entirely. The store felt smaller, like the walls had moved. Someone shouted that we needed to barricade. A few of us ran toward the hardware section, dragging shelves and carts behind us. A woman was sobbing, repeating her son's name over and over. No one answered her. Behind us, something hit the metal gate at the front of the store. Hard, we blocked off 3 aisles using shelving and pallets. It wasn't perfect, but it slowed things down. The group formed without introductions. Maybe 8 of us. Strangers, avoiding eye contact. There was a man with a bleeding head wound, A teenage girl holding a box cutter like it was a lifeline. A couple who wouldn't let go of each other's hands. The sounds carried through the store. Footsteps, dragging. The wet slap of something being pulled across tile. Then we heard chewing. No one spoke after that. The man with the head wound started shaking. He said he felt cold. Someone offered him a jacket from a display. His eyes kept drifting to the barricade. I wasn't bitten, he said. I just fell. But blood was soaking through his sleeve. When the first infected reached our aisle, we smelled them before we saw them. Rot and iron. They moved wrong fast, then slow, then suddenly fast again. One slammed into the shelves, knocking products loose. Cans rolled across the floor, ringing like bells. The man screamed when they grabbed him. We didn't try to save him. We couldn't. The sounds he made after they pulled him away were short, choked. Then, nothing at all. Minutes later, he came back. He walked straight toward us, head tilted, mouth red. His eyes were empty. In a way I can't explain without sounding crazy. We ran. We split without planning to. I ran with 3 others toward the back, past clothing racks and toppled displays. Someone knocked over a shelf behind us to slow whatever was following. It worked for about 10 seconds. The lights went out, not completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, painting everything in dull red. Shadows stretched wrong. Aisles became tunnels. Every sound mattered now. Breathing was too loud. Footsteps echoed. We ducked into the warehouse area, where forklifts sat idle and stacked pallets formed walls. The smell back there was oil and cardboard. The doors to the outside were sealed shut. We hid between pallets, listening. Something moved nearby. Slow steps, wet ones. A shape passed between the rows, head lolling. It brushed against plastic wrap, making it hiss. Another followed. Then another. We waited. The teenage girl started crying. Quiet at first, then louder. One of the infected turned its head toward us. The sound had drawn it in. I covered her mouth, just in time. The infected stepped closer. Close enough that I could see its teeth clicking together. It sniffed the air like an animal. Then it moved on. We didn't move for a long time after that. Somewhere in the store, a child screamed. Then the scream stopped. By the time we moved again, the store felt wrong in a different way because the noise had thinned out, and that silence made everything worse. We found 2 more survivors near the loading docks, one of them holding a handgun with only a few bullets left. And he didn't explain how he knew that number so precisely. No one asked, because questions felt dangerous now. We agreed to move toward the roof access, since it was the only place that made sense, thinking maybe there would be helicopters or police, or at least a signal that someone was still in control somewhere. As we moved, we passed bodies scattered between aisles, some torn open and some still twitching. And I stopped thinking of them as people, because that was the only way to keep walking. One of them grabbed my ankle as I stepped over it, and I kicked until something snapped while forcing myself not to look down. When we reached the stairwell, we found the rooftop door chained shut from the outside, and that was when the man with the gun finally broke. He raised the weapon and demanded the supplies, shouting for us to back up while his hands shook so badly the barrel wobbled. And I realized he had been waiting for an excuse the entire time. The teenage girl reacted before anyone could speak, rushing him with the box cutter still clenched in her fist, and the gun went off inside the stairwell with a sound that felt too loud for the space. The echo rolled through the store like a signal flare, and we ran as infected poured in from every direction, drawn by the noise. The man didn't get up, and neither did the girl. And by the time we were moving again, I wasn't thinking about survival anymore because all I wanted was to not be torn apart. We found the emergency doors near the garden section already damaged, bent just enough that someone must have forced them earlier, and it felt like the first real opening the store had offered all night. Outside, darkness had fully settled, and the parking lot stretched out as a field of abandoned cars, shattered glass, and bodies that no longer looked like bodies. Fires burned somewhere in the distance, and sirens screamed until they didn't, cutting off one by one as if the city itself was losing consciousness. We ran without speaking, shoes slapping against concrete, breath tearing out of our lungs, and something slammed into the man beside me just before we reached the cars. I heard his scream fade as teeth sank in, but I didn't stop, because stopping felt like choosing death. I reached my car and dropped the keys twice before getting the door open, sliding inside and locking it while hands slammed against the windows hard enough to rock the frame. Faces pressed close to the glass with mouths stretched wide, and when the engine finally turned over, I drove without thinking, hitting something almost immediately, and then hitting something else. I didn't stop when I felt the thumping under the tires, and I didn't slow down until the road emptied and the city lights disappeared behind me completely. Only then did I pull over, and only then did I check myself for bites while my hands shook so badly I could barely feel my own skin. I thought getting out early meant something, but the radio proved me wrong as emergency alerts from other cities bled into each other, repeating the same warnings in different voices while carefully avoiding the same word. Listening to them made it clear that what happened in the store wasn't the beginning, because it was already everywhere by the time I noticed it. I sat there with the engine off and the headlights dark, while the wind carried distant screams across the empty road, and that was when the burning in my arm became impossible to ignore. When I rolled up my sleeve, I saw a long scratch I couldn't remember getting, already red and swollen, already changing in a way that told me time was no longer on my side. I stayed in the car until the sky began to lighten because I didn't want to hurt anyone, and I knew that driving again would eventually mean running into someone who was still alive. As the sun came up, the radio went silent for good, and the world felt finished in a quiet way that was worse than the screaming. If you're hearing this, don't go to crowded places, and don't trust locked doors, because none of it stopped what was coming for me. I'm leaving this here instead of trying to go farther, because pretending there's an escape is how people get torn apart, and this is as far as I ever made it.